by others. And that includes, for example, the recent efforts in Arizona, which threaten to undermine basic notions of fairness that we cherish as Americans, as well as the trust between police and their communities that is so crucial to keeping us safe. In fact, I've instructed members of my administration to closely monitor the situation and examine the civil rights and other implications of this legislation.
Alicia Menendez is a senior advisor with the New Democratic Network and is the daughter of Senator Robert Menendez, Democrat of New Jersey. Ron Christie is Republican strategist and former assistant to President George W. Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney. And a good afternoon to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Okay, I want to get first of all as to what exactly this legislation would entail. For example, if you have anybody who looks like they may not have been born in this country, I'm not exactly sure how that is defined, but if you have anybody that a police officer suspects of being an illegal immigrant just walking down the street perhaps, is a police officer with this legislation allowed to go to that person and say, show me your ID? Is that how it's going to play out, Ron?
Yeah, that's what I've heard, Alex. I mean, I certainly agree with the spirit of this legislation. I think that the federal government has let down the United States in allowing millions upon millions of people to enter this country illegally. But being a lawyer, I can't help but look at this and say, are we ready to allow a law to go into effect that allows law enforcement individuals based strictly on the skin color or the ethnicity of an individual to pull them over, to talk to them, to seek their identification papers? I think it could have a very strong chilling effect, and I'm very nervous about the intent.
Okay, so the spirit of which you support, but basically you're worried about civil rights lawsuits left and right.
Absolutely. Not only civil rights lawsuits, but the infringements of individuals' civil rights and their ability to be left alone from the government, free from government intrusion. And I just don't see how, if one of the sole qualifications for this is looking at someone's skin color and saying, I'm going to pull them over, I think that that's going to go to the Supreme Court and get struck down.
Yeah. Alicia, let's talk about what the governor is facing. Governor Jan Brewer has a primary, a pretty contentious one. It's very competitive, set for August. If this thing goes into a law, which we will know about 45 minutes or so from now, we're told, what do you think the reaction is going to be from the minority communities? Have they said what they plan to do?
I think that they are going to very upset how they plan to handle that. We'll see. Listen, I think most Arizonans are frustrated by our broken immigration system, but this is not a solution. If this law goes into effect, it's going to cost people in Arizona a ton of money. It's going to make them less safe because it's going to take their law enforcement, first responders, have them acting as immigration enforcers. And on top of that, it's not going to fix any of the problems that it's intended to fix. So overall, this is a terrible piece of legislation, and Governor Brewer has said she'll do what's right for Arizona. She signs this into law. She's not doing the right thing.
But Alicia, as I understand it, 70% of Arizonans want it, and we should note that that happened in a recent poll. We got that information. Right. We should note that a lot of the protesters today, live there in Phoenix at the outside the county courthouse and the Capitol seat there, a lot of them have come from different states. When you look at the people in Arizona, again, this recent poll says 70% of them agree with this legislation.
70% agree, but there's also a majority that realizes that this could be dangerous legislation that leads to racial profiling. So that poll is, a little confusing. I think that there's a lot of people who, as Ron said, agree with the spirit of this, agree that they are frustrated, that our immigration system's broken, that they want to see it fixed. Mm-hmm. I think, though, what they need to understand is that this is a national problem that needs a federal solution, not state-by-state legislation.
That's what I was going to ask of you, Ron, your thoughts on this. The derivation of this problem, where has the ball been dropped, and is the federal government to blame for it? And do you agree with Alicia's perspective that it's the Fed's problem to fix as opposed to state-by-state?
I do. I think that one of the most important things the federal government has to do is provide for the sovereignty and the sanctity of our border, and Republicans and Democrats alike have let the country down. If you look at Texas, if you look at Arizona, if you look at my home state of California, I think the illegal immigration problem has cost billions upon billions of dollars. But lawmakers need to stand up. They need to recognize that we need to have a lawful process, that we need to have an expedited process, but having illegal immigration is the wrong way to go. And finally, I agree with Alicia. This is a racial profiling situation that concerns me very gravely. If an individual, again, as I said at the top, is allowed to walk up to somebody and seek their identification based strictly on the color of their skin, I think we've gone somewhere very far awry.
You know what I like about this conversation with both of you, Alicia Menendez and Ron Christie? It was a common sense talk. So I thank you both for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Up next, why the Justice Department may have to pay money to an alleged terrorist organization. Yeah, we're going to try and explain this legal dilemma to you next.
For me, Your favorite toy? I couldn't.